So if it helps you, you can use HK. And when I looked it up online a little bit, I even saw some people using HK. So the book, for some reason, uses C and D. But however you want to think about it, I'm going to use CD because that's where it is. That's what's here. But just keep in mind it's really the same as HK. Okay. Always make sure, before you start doing any work, you have to make sure that your equations are in this form. And sometimes they won't be to begin with. So the constant C creates a horizontal translation, just like the H does. The phase shift. It's called a phase shift of the curves. I'll brighten it up again. Okay, C creates a horizontal translation. And you find out what that is by doing C divided by B. And we'll practice it, so don't worry. That gives you the actual phase shift, how much it shifts left to right. Left or right, I should say. How much it shifts left or right. The left and right endpoints of one cycle can be determined by solving these equations. So you just take that stuff that's inside the parentheses, you set it equal to 0, and then you set it into equal to 2 pi, and that'll tell you the endpoints of your cycle after it's shifted. It's 0 and 2 pi because those were the original endpoints of any cycle, right? We saw that yesterday. So these, because these are the original endpoints. And I'll be honest with you. And we'll start by doing this, but ultimately you won't really need to do that step. You'll just see it, I think. But it's there if you need it. The constant D creates the vertical translation, just like K. Shifts it up or down. It changes the baseline is what it does. It changes the baseline. So let's just start. Draw the graph of the equation. Identify the amplitude, the period, and the transformations. I can't help it. I'm a step follower. I just am. So I'm going to list this in steps, and maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. So right above here, this is A. I'm going to put this in parentheses. Next to the X is the B. Is there a C? See up here, here's C. There's no C. And this is D. Okay? So maybe you can begin to see already what's happening to our baseline. Correct. Okay? So I'm going to start with the vertical shift. So number 1, the baseline goes down 1, so my baseline will be y equals -1. When you're doing this, do you need to write all this out? No, but in the teaching purposes here, I'm going to kind of write it out a little bit. So I'm just going to automatically draw my baseline here. It's shifted down 1, that's my new baseline. It's not the x-axis anymore. Number 2, amplitude. What is my amplitude? 3, it's A. Okay, absolute value of A, if you want to look at it like this. So, from my baseline, I go up 3 and down 3. So I'm going to mark that right now. So that means I'm going to go up this high and down this low in my cycle. I'm just marking those points right now. Up 3, down 3. That's my amplitude. Okay. Let's figure out the period. It's still 2 pi over b. What number is my b? 2, it's just 2. It's not x, it's just 2. Okay, so 2 pi over 2. So my period is pi. I'm just going to circle the important parts here. If my period is pi, what are my intervals going to be? I'm just going to write intervals are going to be pi over 4, aren't they? Okay? Number 4. Let's see if there was a phase shift and what it is. So I do that by doing C over B. And I'm not making it up, it's up here. Okay, that's a phase shift right there. So what did we say earlier? Is there a C? No, so it's really just 0 over my, 2, which is 0. So there is no left or right movement, no phase shift. So I don't have to worry about that. Could graph it right now, but just to get you used to, if it helps you using the endpoint thing, really you don't need to do it because there's no phase shift here, but we'll just practice it. To find the endpoint, you do bx minus c equals 0. I don't have a minus c, I just have 2x here. So I'm going to say 2x equals 0, x equals 0. That's my first endpoint. I know that because I didn't shift, but just so you can see where it comes from. And then I'm going to do 2x equals 2 pi to find the other end point. And it should be what? Because what's our period? Pi. We didn't shift at all left or right, did we? So divide by 2, x equals pi. These are my endpoints. And I knew that because there's no shifting. And then the last thing I'm going to consider is that it's cosine. Where does it start when it's cosine? It starts up, doesn't it? Doesn't start on the baseline. Sine starts on the baseline. Is there a reflection? Cosine starts up. There is no reflection. There's no negative, so I'm going to stay starting up. Make sense? Okay. Now I've done all this stuff, I'm going to write my intervals. So I know that this is going to be pi over 4, pi over 2. I already decided my intervals are going up by pi over 4. 3 pi over 4 pi. That's one cycle. I don't really need to go any further than that. Where am I starting? Where's my first point? Right here, correct? That's my first point. How many points do I have when I draw one of these cycles? 5 points. I told you that yesterday. So I go down to the baseline for the next point. Then I go down here for cosine. Back up to the baseline, and then back up to the higher amplitude there. And then you connect them. So, again, you don't need to write it all out. I'm just doing it as a teaching thing. So here, if I were to keep going, it would come here, and then it would go down, and then it would go up. So cosines go forever. They're just waves. All right, so that one wasn't too bad.
Wait, no reflection. Look at that.
Yeah, it looks like
Is there a negative here?
No.
No. If there was a negative, then I would start down.
no, but it looks like it reflects easily.
No, I'm talking about a reflection over the baseline.
The original baseline.
Mm-hmm. Not over the y-axis. Okay, over the baseline. Just like we saw yesterday.
So if it ever shifts, it's not gonna do it.
No, only if there's a negative. If there was a negative, then you would start down here instead of up there. That's a reflection over the baseline.
Got it.
Okay.
I was reflecting with the wrong answer.
All right. All right, next one. So just because I'm going to write the original form here. That's what we're starting with. Are we in the right form? Can we start? It's pretty much in the right form. Yeah, so I'm just going to write plus 0. There's no vertical shift. You don't have to, but just to show you guys. All right, first is the baseline. It's just y equals 0. There is no up or down movement, okay? So that's easy. What's my amplitude? 2. So no up and down movement, so this is my baseline right here. And I'm going to mark my amplitudes. the period. How do you find the period again? 2 pi over b. So up here, what is my b? This is my b right here, correct? So I have 2 pi over 1/2. We have to simplify that, so what is it? Yeah, you just flip the bottom guy and multiply, so it's actually going to be what? 4 pi. So my period is 4 pi. What are my intervals going to be? Just pi, because you divide by 4. So I'm going to be going up by pi on my graph. So I'm keeping that straight. Each cycle is 4 pi. All right, let's check a phase shift now. How much is it shifting left to right? How do we do phase shift? Do you remember from the other side? C over B. What's my C? Be careful. Is it negative 3 pi over 2? No. Why not? Right, because the original was a negative. So, okay, so my C is 3 pi over 2. And my B is what? 1/2. So to simplify that, what is the simplified form of that? 3 pi. All you do is you flip the bottom guy and multiply, and the 2's would cancel, and you get 3 pi. It's a positive 3 pi. So which way is it shifting? To the right. So it shifts to the right 3 pi. Because this is positive. Let's say this was a plus here. Yes, let's just say it was a plus. Then this would be negative, and that would make this negative, which would tell you you go to the left. Okay? All right. You may not need to do endpoints again, but I'm just going to do them. It's pretty easy. Let's find out what my new endpoints are of my cycle. So I take what's inside here, set it equal to 0. It looks like some ugly algebra, but it really doesn't turn out to be that bad. When you do the algebra, you get x equals 3 pi. So that's my first endpoint. And then you do the next one. Okay, now be careful. I have to set it equal to 2 pi, don't I? But I have 2 in the denominator, so I'm going to switch it right away to have a common denominator, which would be 4 pi over 2. That is the same as 2 pi, isn't it? You see that? So I'm doing that so I can work with the fractions. When you add, here, let's just add 3 pi over 2. You get this. 7 pi over 2. And you divide by 1/2, but you're really multiplying by 2. So you actually end up with 7 pi. So these are my 2 endpoints. I can draw this now. I know that I'm going up by what each time? What are my intervals? Pi. I already decided my intervals are pi. So I'm going to start here with pi and write my intervals. I have to go up how high? 7 pi. Because I determined that that was my endpoint. Originally you start here, don't you? Well, how far did we shift to the right? That's what that's telling me. So my first interval is starting here. And I'm going up by pi, so I'm just going to kind of draw these lightly. How many intervals do I need?
4.
1, 2, 3, 4. And as it says here, my endpoints are 3 pi and 7 pi. Yeah? With me so far? Okay. It's sine. Where do I start? At the baseline. So I start right here at sine. Stay with me, Miranda. I heard I've had one of those voices that put people to sleep.
I think it's just you.
Okay. So, all right, so my amplitude is 2. There's no reflection, so I'm just going to go up, then down, then up. 5 points. And you can keep going. It's really easy. Goes here, then here, and you can keep sketching this graph because obviously sine graphs go forever. No problem? Let's do one more. Get excited. Do you all need to stand up and wake up? Come on. 2 people falling asleep on me already. This is it. Okay? Okay, take a look at this one. Before we do anything, put a 2 here, because it just gets ugly if it's a 4. Put a 2 there. Are we ready to start this? This one, no, we're not ready to start it. We have to do something. It's not in the right form. Yes, it's got to be in this form, and it's not in that form. So, what's the point of it? I don't know. It makes it's rewrite it. You got to put it in the right form. Put it in the right form, which means it's going to look like this. I'm going to put a 1 here. Oh, excuse me, that's a minus. Minus 2. That's a minus. But I'm still not done. Still not in the right form. It's a minus, yes. That's what I said. I'm still not done. Yes. You can't have it like this either. You have to distribute the pi. You see, there's nothing outside here except a 1. So you have to distribute the pi. Now we're ready to begin. Okay, let's start. What's the baseline? Careful. It went down 2. So it's negative 2. Y equals negative 2, because that's what D is. So I'm going to draw my baseline right now. What's your amplitude? A equals 1. So from the baseline, you'll be going up 1 and down 1. So I'm just marking that. From the baseline, you go up 1 and down 1. Period. 2 pi over b. What is my b? Pi is my b. Consider the form here. Okay? Pi is b. So your period is 2. So what's your intervals? I always like to do that right now. What are my intervals? Yeah, intervals are 0.5. So I might even go up and just mark those on the x-axis right now. 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2. Okay? 4, phase shift. C over B. What's your C? Pi. And what's your B? Oh, so how much am I shifting? 1 to the right. Correct? Nope, got a problem. Who caught it? What's the problem? What is C actually? Negative pi. Excuse me, C is negative pi. C is negative pi. Because this is a plus, it had to be a negative that went in there to make that happen. So it's negative 1. So we're actually shifting to the left 1. So I'm going to write my negative 0.5 and my negative 1. I know I got to shift to the left one.
Wait, a whole one or would this be?
A whole one. Pi divided by pi is 1.
Wait, yeah.
Remember, we have intervals of,
5?
but we have intervals of 0.5. But we're shifting a whole one to the left. Let's do it without even doing the endpoints. We don't need to, okay? Where were we starting this graph at? Here, correct? Because it's sine. We were starting it here. So instead, we have to start it where? Here. Because we are shifting a whole one to the left. So this is now my starting point. It's sine. I start on the baseline. Does everybody follow me with that? If you don't like it, you can do the endpoints. It's fine. Now, I'm going to draw my intervals. Remember, I'm going up by 0.5 here. It is a reflection, so be careful. Reflection. It's a negative in front of here. There's a negative. So instead of going up, I do what? Go down. How many points do I need? Isn't that cool? And then you can keep going in both directions because it's a sine graph. All right, now, let me tell you something on your homework. Oh, go grab it and then I'll show it to you.